As living beings, we can broadly define what we are or who we are as body and mind. It's two broad categories. So it's obvious we have body. It's solid bits, liquid bits, made up of earth, water, fire, and air, the four great elements. Then we have those things which are unseen, the mind and heart. Heart meaning emotion, so the intellect and emotional world. So I think what's useful in terms of meditation is establishing a bodily posture which will support us as much as possible to do the inner work on the intellect and emotional world, intellectual emotional world. So as we begin to settle down for our meditation tonight, whether we're sitting on a bench or chair or on the floor, on cushions, or maybe our posture at this time doesn't support sitting at all. Maybe we have a situation where we can only be lying down. That's absolutely fine, because the Buddha spoke about four postures. So the fourth being standing. So standing, walking, seated, or lying down. So this opportunity tonight, I would suggest that it's a time of stillness, so to not be, if you're at home, to not be doing walking, unless it's absolutely necessary. But otherwise, one of the other three postures, standing, seated, or lying down. And establish a posture that can be held in stillness for relatively long periods of time. So whatever posture it is, find a balance. Find a posture that uses the least amount of physical energy to sustain. So in the standing or seated posture, try not to be leaning in any direction, to have an upright posture. It's useful to sweep through the body with our awareness to check and see if there's any unnecessary holding or tension. To begin at the top of the head, and with our mindfulness literally go from one place in the body to the next, checking. So let's do that for the next minute or so. Your own time. Check for tension, and if you find any, then release that tension. this small exercise that we've just done helps us get grounded in the body, a mindfulness that's grounded in the body, based in the body, can help us begin to, well, to put it bluntly, get out of our heads. Can begin to allow us to not be so focused on the thinking process. Which is where we usually are. We tend to habitually, as I say, be up in our heads and not down in the body. And that can be really tiring. The Buddha seemed to really emphasize in the very few meditation instructions that are recorded, so much of it is around being mindful of the body. So mindfulness of breathing, that's mindful of a bodily process, so that's mindfulness of body. Mindfulness of movements. He emphasized being mindful of just the most mundane bodily actions. So basically, just be mindful all the time, whether we're walking, moving forward, backwards, sideways, sitting, standing, whether we're stretching our arm out or pulling it in, getting dressed, putting clothes on the body, any bodily movement. And not to make a big deal out of it, it's not what he was saying, but just to be aware, to be mindful of what we're doing. No big deal. But mindfulness is a big deal. This is what's different. Because when we're with what we're doing, then we're in the present moment. Our mind and heart are dwelling in the present moment. Not shooting forward into the future with the thoughts, not dwelling on the past with thoughts. So now for the next few minutes, let's just, in the most simple way, allow our focus to rest gently on the breathing process of the body. Whatever speed the breath is, whatever depth, shallow, deep, medium, fast, slow, medium, without changing the breath, just notice the breath coming in and going out of the body. Being mindful of that at whichever part of the body is most comfortable for you. abdomen, chest, throat, nose, whatever, it doesn't matter. Choose one place that's comfortable and use that for the next few minutes. As we're practicing in this way, noticing the breathing process, it's very natural to have the mindfulness get sidetracked or pulled out back to thinking. And how many of us can just shut off the thinking process? It's not even necessarily what we're trying to do. It's not to try and obliterate thinking. Thinking is, or can be, very useful. It's an amazing ability that we have as human beings. But as we place our attention on something else, like the breathing process, this can have a calming effect. There can be a slowing down of the mind. Sometimes it's very subtle. Just give a little bit of space. Interrupts that habitual thinking process of one thought quickly following another. And the slowing down of thought also has the benefit of allowing us to see clearly what we're thinking. To spot thinking patterns. To discern more clearly. This is where, in the thinking world, this is where suffering dwells. This is where dukkha and stress typically dwells. The response to some sort of stimulus, some sort of experience. And then the thinking mind kicks in. So let's go back into silence again and just gently allow the focus to rest on the breath. And no matter how many times perhaps our focus strays to something else, just gently return to the breath. with meditation, we can often feel that it's not working, or that we're doing something wrong, or that it's even a failure when the thinking process continues, when we, quote, can't stop thinking, unquote. And as I said a few minutes ago, it's at least the way I understand it, we're not trying to wipe out thinking, blank out the mind. And I think this is something that it's quite crucial that we think about this, or contemplate this, reflect on this. Because if non-stress, non-suffering is based on non-thinking, how can that be sustained? That's a very conditional state of calm or peace. And Buddha was pointing at unconditional peace, unconditional calm. And equanimity, stability. Not based on thinking or non-thinking, but based on understanding. So I like to think of it as being relational. It's our relationship with sense impressions. And thinking is another sense impression. So we have things that we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and think. These perceptions that come into our consciousness. So I like to think of it as we're cultivating an attitude towards our perceptions, not a hyper-control over what we perceive. A certain degree of control is very useful. It's around sense restraint, choosing wisely what our experiences are, with what control we do have, what choice we do have. That's very useful. Important, because what we allow in, it rumbles around. However, we can't control everything. And even to try and control our experience, there's a stress, there can be a stress involved in that right there. So now as we go into silence again, just maybe reflect on that, as if and when things do arise, apart from the perception of breath, when thoughts arise, when feelings arise, can we develop and have an attitude of openness? Not obstructing, but not holding. The thought comes, don't obstruct, but don't hold. Emotion comes, don't obstruct, but don't hold. Let these things move through consciousness, through awareness. Non-obstruction, non-holding. One of the mistakes we can make is to only apply this to what's not wanted, the emotional or intellectual experiences that we have that aren't wanted. But we need to apply this to also what's wanted. Because if we try to hold or obstruct the passing of what we want, to grab, to grasp, to cling, to barricade ourselves with what we want, this is stress. This is dukkha. If we try to protect ourselves without wisdom, really stress those last two words, without wisdom, without discernment. By all means, we should try to nurture goodness in our life, in whatever form that is. Nurture, care, attention. But without clinging, without grasping. And if we fully penetrate the impermanent nature of all things, if we fully realize that, see clearly this transience of all compounded things, then we know it's fruitless to try and grab onto something, hold on to something beyond the possibility. You have to know when to let go. That's intuitive, it's not intellectual. Practicing like this gives us this opportunity to develop the ability to see these things, to know when we're clinging, when we're grasping, and to know when we're not clinging and grasping. And the quality of awareness or consciousness that knows clinging, that sees clinging, and that same quality of consciousness or awareness that sees non-clinging. It's the same consciousness. Consciousness knowing clinging and knowing non-clinging. It knows the presence and absence. And you can just change the object that's known, whether it's clinging, anger, joy, sorrow, bliss. The consciousness, awareness that knows sights, sounds, smells, tastes, tactile objects, and thoughts, all emotions. All of these things are coming and going in our conscious awareness. And consciousness, awareness, and that's our, as Ajahn Chah, I believe, referred to it as our true home. There's no refuge in the objects that arise and cease. They're not a safe thing. The ones that we like, they're not safe. They're not secure. So all the things that come and go, changing, shifting, moving. And awareness or consciousness is the witness of that change. The silent witness. Witnessing the pains and pleasures and all that comes and goes. Not demanding that things be a certain way. And the more we get tuned in to our inner world, and the more clearly we can start to see intention. This is very important. The intention behind our thoughts and our actions, our words. Intention is where kamma or karma is defined, I guess you could say. The actions through body, speech, and mind that we do. And that includes how we meditate. What's our intention? And also, if we set a goal in our meditation, this can quite easily backfire. and sometimes create a lot of what we refer to in our practice as bhava tanha, or this becoming energy, trying to get, acquire, become, to get concentrated, get peaceful, get spiritual, become something that we think we're not, and become something that we think will be a benefit to us. Or the flip side is to get rid of things we don't want, get rid of the things that we think we should not have. Habits, thoughts, emotions. Get rid of a sense of self. Get rid of personality. These are quite common, and it's not the way. Trying to become or to get rid of. And instead, we're trying to see clearly, understand, discern what we're doing, to see those habits of mind and heart and not be taken in, not be fooled, and just let those things fade away. And they keep coming back, they let it fade away again. No problem. And that breaks this habit, this perpetuation. It's like a circuit breaker, breaks the continuum of those habits. And over time, the habits become understood, and by being understood, they are weakened until, even if those impulses arise again, they don't get any traction, they don't get any belief. It's just old thought impulses that we know exactly what they are. No power, nothing. So in this way, we're using meditation to develop the discerning quality, the quality of panya, discernment, wisdom. It takes time. This is lifelong practice. And parting encouragement is for us to all keep going. Keep going, take away the time element. Not to be in a hurry, just keep going.